lot of her funeral and that process felt very cold to me because we were all experiencing things, but it was very hard for people to kind of feel togetherness in that. The problems that have existed with my dad and his sisters have been going on for such a long time that there was no way that this was going to be the thing that fixed it. On some level, I think I was maybe hoping that it might. I was especially hoping that people that are much older than me would be a little bit more mature and try to, rise above, and that was just not going to happen. And I was very disappointed by that.
My father's death was totally unexpected. I lived in Oregon, where my parents were in Texas, and I happened to be in town. I'd had this been in this weird headspace the night before and resolved to wake up and quite possibly just, even though I was planning on being there for several more days, I'd driven, and I was half resolved to wake up the next day and drive back to Oregon, and instead I woke up to the sound of a defibrillator in the next room.
I lost my dad in 2001. It was something like the first week of high school, and he had passed away of lung cancer because he was a heavy smoker through most of his life, and then a couple of days into school, September 11th had happened. Over that night, we had learned that my dad had passed away after September 11th. So he had passed away on the 12th, and we were sad about that. I mean, I was so much more upset about my dad passing away than about, it was just so much more personal to me, you know.
I guess it'll be 3 years in December. I lost my boyfriend. In the beginning of our relationship, he told me he didn't do drugs. I came home to his house, and there was marijuana in the house. And then it started getting harder, and I came home, and there would be vodka in his breath, and I knew he was struggling with something, but he wasn't showing it in the right way, not letting me know about it. And I said, when the way you deal with things affects me, then it is my problem. So we need to talk. And it's the only time he texts me that he loved me, and he said, Bev, I love you. I'm just trying my hardest right now. And I remember thinking, wow, like this is different. Like I got this sixth sense that something was going on. So I decided, okay, I'm going over. And I had a key, but the front door was working, but the inside was not. And I see through the peephole that his light is on. So I knock on the door, and nothing. I text him, hey, I'm here. Where are you? Nothing. And I bang on the door again. I'm sitting outside that door for about 45 minutes, just sitting there. I stayed. I tried a few more times, went across the street, had a glass of wine, got really frustrated because I figured he'd gone out. I just felt discarded. I was ready to be, done. I had no idea that he used heroin. So when I was knocking on that door the whole time, the lights were on, he was there. So he was getting that one last dose of whatever it was.
So I walked in the house and all the lights were off except for the hallway. And then there was the shrine with like little trinkets. And so I turned to the hallway and I noticed letter and pamphlets, and I was still kind of, just like, oh. And I went to read the letter, and the first two sentences, or like one sentence of the letter was, "Dear Jennifer, I need you to call Grandpa, and I need you to tell him I'm dead."
Yeah, she just told me that he'd taken a really bad fall. He was in the hospital. She was worried, but still hopeful at the time. So there was that, and then there was a series of conversations. Like that was one, and then the next one I remember was when she said, we still think he's going to come out of it. We just don't know when. And then I slowly watched it turn to like where the reality sunk in, that he wasn't coming out. I've come to sort of trust my instinct when I feel that like this is not going well. This isn't going to come. This isn't going to resolve with somebody getting back up.
The pattering at once grew louder in encouragement, and then ceased altogether. Gabriel placed 10 trembling fingers on the tablecloth and smiled nervously at the company. Meeting a row of upturned faces, he raised his eyes to the chandelier. The piano was playing a waltz tune, and he could hear the skirts sweeping against the drawing room door. People were perhaps standing in the snow on the quay outside, gazing up the lighted windows and listening to the waltz music. The air was pure there. In the distance lay the park, where the trees were weighted with snow, and the Wellington Monument wore half snow, that flashed westward over the white fields.
The pattering screw loud in encouragement, and then ceased altogether. Gabriel placed 10 trembling fingers on the tablecloth, smiled nervously at the company. Meeting a row of upturned faces, he raised his eyes to the chandelier. The piano was playing a waltz tune, and he the skirts sweeping against the door. Perhaps was dead. No, quay outside, gazing up the windows. The air was pure there, just like the park.
So I was coming home and I noticed that I had a missed call from my dad. I was like gonna wait to deal with it till I got home, and I opened the door and my husband is there, and he says, did you talk to your dad? And I said no. And he said, why don't you call him now? And I said, well, can I just take a few minutes? And he's like, no, because you don't want me to tell you this. You want him to tell you this. So you need to call him right now.
I remember some parts of it really well. I remember like getting evacuated from our high school and walking all the way up the West Side Highway. And I guess I'm grateful that I wasn't quite mature enough to kind of, grasp what great tragedy had happened. I remember walking up that road and, I'd see girls in our class, they were crying and weeping and stuff, and like I almost couldn't get it. I was thinking, it's like, oh, I don't think they knew anyone in the Twin Towers. Why are they so sad? The next day we were going to go to the hospital. It was so hard to just get there because none of the trains were running. Everything was stopped. We couldn't even walk up the most direct route to the hospital. So, we walked around things and roadblocks, and we talked to police officers to let us through, and we finally got to the hospital.
At that moment, I almost opened the door because I was just like, maybe she's alive. Maybe this just happened. Maybe I could save her. But then there was a part inside that was like, don't open that fucking door. It was like, do not go in there. And so I went back down the hallway, I ran outside, and I just started screaming at Justin. And I didn't say anything, I just started screaming. And I was like, she's dead, she's dead, she's dead.
We had this terrible, terrible miscommunication. I'll never forget walking down 2nd Avenue and talking to Steve. Like, he came up and met us, and I looked at him and I said, "Where's Rob? Is he okay? Like, what do you think happened? Are we going to find Rob?" And he said, "No, I thought you knew. Rob's dead." And like, it was like I got hit by a truck. Like, my heart just dropped. I was walking down the street, and then all of a sudden, like, I couldn't stand. I was just on the ground, and I was thinking, oh, this is such a movie. This is such like a, I'm one of those women in those feature film that is like dying from heartache, and I couldn't stop. Like, it was just the most terrible thing, and I was wailing. I was thinking, maybe I should be more quiet. I was thinking, am I being crazy right now? Judging myself as I'm mourning at the same time.